Today's speaker is Francis Lee, as I mentioned, and Francis is the former CEO and current board chair of Synaptics in Santa Clara, and I think you stepped down as the CEO in July, and before that it was some 10 years you were CEO running the company. Synaptics designs and produces sensor technology, and today has more than 60% of the touchpad market in laptops, smartphones, MP3 players, and other such devices. It had annual sales of $473 million, roughly 470 employees. That's $1 million per employee in revenue, which is impressive in itself. And it was named on the top 20 best small public companies in the Forbes magazine recently. Francis, today's speaker, graduated in engineering in 1974 with a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. And he has an amazing story of a young Hong Kong teenager who came to the U.S. unable to speak English, relocated in Sacramento, and came to Davis. And from there, the rest is history. He graduated from Davis. He went to National Semiconductor, worked there for 20 years, and then went on to start a company in Hong Kong in collaboration with National Semiconductor and Magna in the 1990s. When he returned to the U.S., and I think that was 1998, he returned and joined Synaptics, and as director and CEO, leading its remarkable growth in the human interface. It was a perfect combination of being at the right place at the right time. And in fact, his whole career has been that way. It coincides with this rapid explosion in the semiconductor industry and just parallels the tremendous growth and represents Davis as a tremendous alumni. Today, he will talk on a discussion on human interface, technology and interface. Please join me in welcoming Francis back to the College of Engineering.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bruce. I have not been back to the school for over the last 30 some odd years. And it's really nice to see three of my former professors that I got to see. And Dr. Suhu, Dr. Fukasi, and Dr. Feng. I think they're back there. Okay. And one of the things that I'm so glad is they didn't flunk me. Otherwise, I would have been in trouble. You know. Okay, so I would like to make today's discussion here very informal, so please feel free to stop me any time on any of the stuff. So, you know, I don't know how many of you guys had attended the investor conferences, you know, the kind of stuff that public companies talks about. The first thing that FOIA, after the introductory FOIA, is a FOIA called disclosures. Have you guys seen this stuff? Okay. Basically, what this FOIA says is you cannot hold against me anything that I talk about, okay? And so that nobody can sue me, nobody can, you know, say bad things about me. So let me do a disclosure here with you guys first, right? A few points I want to bring about. First thing is nothing technical in this presentation. So if you're looking for picofarads or microamps, and you know, you're not going to find it because, like I told Dr. Feng earlier when I seen him. A few years after I graduated here, I looked back at the textbook that Dr. Su and Dr. Feng taught it. I was amazed I understood any of those theories, you know, and I don't know why they passed me to begin with. So I have given back and forgot about a lot of those esoteric theories already. But what I do want to share with you is a lot of common sense. I mean, in my 30 plus years in the industry, there are a few things in here that I have learned. I'd like to share that with you. And please forgive me if I do some commercial here, okay, on behalf of the company, Synaptics. One of the things that, I'm honored to be back in the school. I also would like to introduce the Synaptic to the school here because we're in the Bay Area and we do hire a lot of engineers in our company, even though it's a very small company. But we've been hiring, 15, 20% people all the time, every year for the last 10 plus years that I've been in the company. And also we have a high degree of interns that we hire, college interns into the school. And I've talked to Janet to get her hooked up with our talent acquisition manager. So I certainly would like to see a lot of the Davis alumni, into the company. The next thing is, like I said, I just want to share some of the learning that I have with you. Is really not right or wrong. It's just my personal experience about, those two topics. The first part about it is human interface technology, which is what Synaptics is all about. The second part about it is a little bit more related to human interaction. So I call it human interface interactions. And the last thing is make sure it's a dialogue. Okay, so you have anything that you want me to stop and discuss, please feel free to stop it. Okay, like I said, this is a really informal discussion. Is that okay, you guys? Okay. So let me just quickly flash a few foils here. This thing here is really a bunch of laptop computers. Okay, I think laptop computers, when people talk about PC has not been growing, actually the laptop computer has been growing by double digits, for the last 10 years. From a small base, but it's been growing for fast. I think you guys will recognize some of those devices on here. This is a flat panel display. There's some wireless keyboards. This is actually a remote controller, another wireless keyboard. There's a wireless mouse, and this is another Echo Star, wireless control here. And this is probably one of the hardest, thing that people talk about these days. This is a bunch of smartphones that uses touch screens. So the question I have for you is, what are some of the common challenges for those devices? I think if I ask you guys on the previous 3 foil, do you have one of those in your possession? My bet is 100% audience, they have something like that. Am I right? Okay. So what are some of the common challenges from a device manufacturer perspective? When you want to build this thing, I'm just going to throw a few topics out there for discussion purposes. First thing here is, what is the problem they are solving? So let me just use an example of a notebook computers. When I first go to the industry, first of all, when I took some of the classes, okay, in Davis, the biggest deal that there was HP 35 calculator, right? And I couldn't afford one, and some of the people that can afford one, it was a big thing. And when you look at computers, the first thing that came out was really for computing purposes, right? When you do calculations and stuff like that. So that was the problem they're solving. And they quickly evolved to a communication devices for emails, and most of us, actually use it for communications. Then it kind of evolved to people play games with it, and today people still use computer to play games. If you go to travel, in airplanes and stuff like that today, what you find is people are no longer watching movies on the screen. They all have their personalized DVD collection, that they watch, on their notebook computers, right? When Paul come to my house, sometimes, I notice he bring his laptop, he bring his DVD movies, and that's kind of how Steve, look at the movies, okay? So it's come into entertainment devices. So even if you look at notebook computers, it's kind of the problem they're solving have been evolving over time. And then it depends on what problem do you solve, okay? Then you provide a solution for them, right? The second thing is, what value does a solution offer? Will people pay that kind of money for it? Again, if I use notebook computers as an example, my first laptop was a Synaptics data system laptop. It is big and it's huge, okay? It's very inconvenient, okay? And I pay over $3,000 for that laptop computers. Today, you can go to Costco and buy a netbook for $300, right? So the value, that's part of the challenge with the device manufacturers. How much will people pay for it? The next thing here is, how easy is it to use the solutions? My father is an entrepreneur. He is very good with the abacus. I have bought him many calculators. He just refused to use it, okay? And when you ask him about it, he says, that's too difficult to use. Well, it's not difficult for me, but it's difficult for him, okay? So the notion of how easy to use a PC to access internet, I think a number of us here will have the challenge in terms of our parents, our grandparents, and using it. And what does the device look like and feels like is also important, okay? And then, what are the other functionality besides the thing they're supposed to fix? And I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in my subsequent slide. But these are some of the challenge when every device manufacturer have. It's not lack of ideas, and it's lack of, you know, what problems it's solving, how much can I get paid for it, okay? How easy to use it, and what does it look like and feel like, and what are the benefits besides the main reason why people want to buy this gadget. So let me use iPod as a proxy here. How many of you guys have an iPod with you, or iPhone? More than half of the people sitting here, right? Okay. So this is on the y-axis is the, I think it's in unit millions. It's a millions of units, okay, of the iPhone sold by the fiscal year. The fiscal year of Apple actually started in the December quarter. The test here is obviously, I didn't put the fiscal year scale here for a reason. I just put a number on there. Do you guys know when the iPod first got introduced? Anybody know? Huh? What? iPod, not the iPhone, iPod. 2000. So Dean is very correct. It's actually introduced around 2000, 2001. And you notice, right, there was actually hardly any revenue in it. As a matter of fact, the first generation of iPod has got a mechanical wheel on it. Okay, you turn it and you click, 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 you know. The second generation iPod, their tagline was, we have reinvented the wheel. And what they did was, instead of mechanical wheel, they put a solid state wheel on there. But when you move the wheel, it seems like it's a mechanical, actually solid state. It doesn't move. It just gives you look and feel of a mechanical wheel, right? But they still didn't sell. As a matter of fact, Synaptics was designed in the second generation of the iPod, and when they say they reinvented the wheel, Synaptics was a partner that redesigned that solid state wheel for them. At that time, when I talked to investors, you know, and people asked me, they said, why are you interested to design this product that hardly have any sales in it? And I said, well, I don't know. But for something that has got a computing power of a notebook computer, it can store thousands of songs, I think people will find something with it. But I really have no idea, okay, how well the product's going to sell. In December quarter of 2003, they sold more than 700,000 units. It was the first breakout quarter because of the Christmas holiday season. And that started a tsunami of iPod sales. You guys knew what happened that triggered the sales? iTunes stores. And they collaborated with the music industry and started the 99 cents download. All of a sudden, people can spend $300–400 on an instrument like that and see a use for it. Before, that was kind of interesting. And the rest is history. They have never looked back. Okay, over the years, they have introduced various versions of the iPod and all this and that. So the thing about it is really not the technology. The technology, yeah, is getting more fancy, it's getting, you know, more capacity, it's getting more powerful. But it's really the application, okay, that the user, you know, spend to buy devices like that. Okay, so when I talk about human interface technology, let me just kind of give you a thesis about how interface solutions, you know, evolve in here. So first, on the lower right-hand corner, okay, users like yourself and myself, okay, like to access information anytime, anywhere. As a matter of fact, it's getting to the point now, if I know you have a cell phone and I call you and you don't answer it, I kind of get mad. Because I says, what the heck is mad at this person? Is it because he saw my user ID and don't answer it, or is it because he turned it off, right? We're trained that we wanted to talk, we want to access people. So that's the demand side of this stuff. And, you know, schools like Davis, right, is turning out, you know, engineers, you know, by the boatload. And technology drivers that allows those information exchange is being rolled out every day, right? So wireless network, Bluetooth, and so on and so forth, semiconductors. So, and that is actually accelerating quite nicely. And that leads to the proliferation of all these devices up here, you know, and some of this is very Synaptic-centric names, but you guys will get the gist of it, okay? PC product, PC peripheral products, what we call portable digital entertainment products, cell phone products. And like I said, I'll be surprised if, you know, the audience here don't have one of those things, okay? It may not be identical, but you will have one of those, you know, either at home or with you. the challenge here is how to connect this thing, the user, with the gadget. So if I would, call those interface solutions, and by that I mean is a user like you and I who can access those gadgets in an intuitive manner to solve or to serve, you with the application you want to launch. And when you think about that, as a user, we have 5 of the sensors, right? And I would say that we use 3 of those 5 sensors. The exception will be smell and taste. Now, maybe one of these days we will need that in our machines, but probably not yet, right? Okay. So actually, you would use vision, which is sight, voice, and touch, and maybe applications like handwriting recognitions, okay? That allows you, or voice recognition, that allows you to interact with the machines, right? That makes sense, right? Now, sometimes it's not just one type of a sensor. Sometimes is a summation of 2. So I would say that if you have a touch screen phone, what you're doing is using the sense of touch, collaborating with a sense of vision, because you're getting vision feedback on the LCD, and interacting with the devices. What Synaptics, now this is a commercial here. What Synaptics does is we actually focus on the sense of touch. Okay, so anytime when we look at how we interact with equipment, stuff like that, we focus using the capacitive technology to make touch easy and intuitive. So if you guys, all of you guys own a notebook computers, for example, the touchpad that's on a notebook computer is our products. And we own about 65 to 70% of the market. So if you use one, chances are you're touching Synaptics products every day when you use it. So this is our area of expertise. And this is our tagline. Okay, when you say people, what do you do? Well, we enrich the interaction between human and intelligent devices. And when you say intelligent devices, we have a very simple definition for it. And that's anything that's got a microcontroller in it. Okay, we consider that intelligent, right? So we focus on the interface solution via touch to make access to those equipment easy. So now I'm going to flash back and show you the same kind of, oh, by the way, this is again, our headquarter building in Santa Clara. Okay, we bought this building in 2004, okay? I started in the company in 1999, and when we moved a couple of times, and then during the downturn, we just bought this building. And if you go to Santa Clara, this is in the corner of Scott and Montague or Santa Mass. It's actually, we are pretty proud of what we have done here. Okay, so let me just tell you a little bit about the company here. First of all, the company, was started in 1986 as a neural network research company. And the company is founded by 2 industry icons, Dr. Carver Mead and Dr. Federico Fagin, for those of you in electrical engineering. Carver Mead actually pioneered a lot of VLSI engineering, and Dr. Fagin was one of the co-inventors of the microprocessors when he was working in Intel. So it's got a very deep engineering heritage in it. And we are known as the leader in the human interface solution. We have shipped over 650 million solutions, and it's keep on adding up every day. Many of the industry first, in some of those trade terms in here. Now the company is unique in a number of ways. Like Bruce said, we're about $1 million per employee, and the reason why I can do that is we are virtual manufacturing companies. So we produce the products, but we don't build any of them. So we are relying on third parties to produce products for us. Our customers are basically the leaders in the respective space. So for the notebook computers, you will see HP, you will see Dell, you will see Acer, you will see IBM, and so on and so forth. And because the company is a virtual manufacturing company, so more than 60% of our employees are actually engineers. And what they do is they really focus on producing innovative solutions, okay, to go into those devices. 40% of the company employee actually located overseas. Okay, so in the building I show you, it houses about 300 employees today, and the other 200 are distributed in about 15, 16 locations outside the US. We have a very strong R&D investment. So you can see that about 60% of it is engineers. And we issue a lot of patents, okay? So if you walk in the Synaptics office, you will find a wall of fame, okay? And it's just full of, Synaptic patents. But we also generate a lot of IP that we don't disclose in terms of patents, and we call it trade secret know-how, and we don't tell people those kind of stuff because we want to kind of make sure that they become, competitive, weapons, for us. And we have more than 600 unique designs. When I say unique designs, Synaptics product cannot be found in a catalog anywhere. Every single one of them is customized. 15 to 25% of our revenue in every 90 days come from new designs. So we're constantly obsoleting our products. So when you look at innovation, in terms which I'll talk a little bit about later, that's really the lifeblood of the company. We constantly have to move ahead of the competition to stay ahead. Okay, so this is kind of when what we do is we build interface solutions that address the digital lifestyles, of the company, of the consumers as well as the needs of the businesses. I actually have some demo stuff like that here. If you guys want to come back later and want to look at it, you guys are welcome to do that. So those are a bunch of devices. And by the way, those devices, you will see that will continue to proliferate even at a quicker rate, as we kind of move ahead in the future here. This is a little cell phone that has all Synaptics solution in it, okay? And I'm not going to go through each and every one of them. And those are all phones that have been released in the last probably, I would say, 12 months or less. And this is one of the fastest growing segments in the industry today. I think the percentage of smartphones in the cell phone market, first of all, the cell phone market is over 1 billion units every year. And the percentage of the smartphone in the cell phone market is actually relatively low. And you're going to see a doubling and tripling. Now, one of the most famous one that people probably have is iPhone, right? And you're going to see a explosion of this kind of devices. First of all, because the consumer demands it. Second of all, because that's where the profits are, for the cell phone manufacturers. This is a list of notebook computers, got Synaptics products in it. Like I said, we own about, you can find about 65-70% of the notebook has got a touchpad or touch solutions in the products, sometimes in more than one ways, okay? Like in some of the HP products, there is a dual pointing solution, like in my computer here. You actually have a pointing stick as well as the touchpad. Both of them actually are our products. And we use the capacitive technology to mimic the mechanical, properties of a pointing stick, and actually it's capacitive, it's not the mechanical. And this is a list of all the devices that are, in the adjacent markets that we use touch for. These two are remotes, okay? You look at a monitor. Why would people use a capacitive solution for a monitor? It's really for aesthetics. When you look at a monitor, they are thin, okay? And people do not want to have any protrusion from the frames. They want it to be flush-mounted. So what we have is you will find that you would have capacitive solutions kind of in the edge here. When you touch it or when you get close to it, it lights up. It allows you to move the volume up and down, turn on the other multimedia controls and stuff like that. Our solution is in a Sony TV. Again, they use capacitive touch, rather than the mechanical buttons. In a Logitech squeeze box, in the Walkman. Digital photo frames, for example, is another thing that people uses our touch technology, because people, again, do not want buttons, to be protruding for photo frames. And people want a proximity sensing, meaning when you wanted to see a different picture, rather than physically touch it, you can actually use your hands to swipe through the frame. You can see another pictures. In the Jabra, series headsets, okay, so when you have a Bluetooth headset, instead of button to push it, you use your hand to kind of slide back and forth. It acts like a button to turn on and off, turn the volume up and down. In a wireless remote, wireless keyboard, so in this Microsoft keyboard, actually as your head gets close to the wireless keyboard, it lights up, it kind of wakes up, it's kind of a wow factor. In a Logitech Air mouse, in another Logitech keyboard. So when you find that there's opportunity for touch, there's actually a potential a Synaptics solution. In San Jose, if you go to one of the Wells Fargo ATM machine, the touch screen, they actually have our Synaptics touch technology in there as well. So what makes Synaptics different here, and I guess is some message I want to share with the engineering students in here, is when you think about Synaptics, we offer a subsystem solution to provide to our manufacturers, because companies like HP and Dell, for example, they are very large PC companies, but they really do not have the technology of the capacitive touch, so rely on partners like us to provide the solution for them, right? And then you have ODM, original device manufacturers in Taiwan or China, like Qantas, that actually put those things together and they turn it into a PC or notebook computers. So if you think of them as integrators, putting the stuff together is the first time when they put a motherboard, when they put a monitor, when they put a touchpad in there, right? Integrate them together. So it's very important for us to provide the system know-how, okay, of what it takes, okay, to produce one of those, you know, hopefully it's plug-and-play system in there. Now, within that system engineering, there's actually a lot of engineering discipline that we have: mechanical, electrical designs, software designs, firmware knowledge. We have a lot of gesture. Nowadays, gesture is really big, you know. The mixed analog digital ASIC designs, you know, we have a team of people there that produce a proprietary, you know, chip, you know, for our devices. Sensor design, you know, think of sensor as like a PCB, right? You know, how you sense the touch. Sometimes it's PCB, sometimes plastic, sometimes glass. Each of the properties have a different kind of materials that will interact differently with the chip, with the software and the firmware. And then it goes into a whole bunch of things in here, like testing, qualification, manufacturing. So even though we don't build a product ourselves, we actually produce customized test fixtures, because none of this product is the same, right? And you couldn't find them anywhere. So we actually have to produce customized fixtures and solutions. And we actually have to deal with cosmetics. We have to stand behind our products in terms of manufacturing, production qualities. And then there's a group of people that's pretty unique in our company called concept prototyping and usability. And I cannot emphasize it more that when you try to solve a problem, you have to understand what the problem you're solving. So we actually have a team of people called usability, and that is to study people when they play games, when they use PCs, what problems do they have? So the better you can pinpoint a problem, the better that you can to build a prototype to see if you can solve the problem, and then that turns into a product. So this kind of stuff is actually leading, marketing, trial, by an error. They're trying to seed the product with markets. Seed the market with product ideas. So every 90 days or so, we'll go and meet with all the OEMs and ODMs and say, hey, have you think about doing this to solve that problem? Okay. So an example to you will be, we have a product called the dual mode, touchpad. What a dual mode touchpad does is one mode acts as navigation devices. Another mode actually acts as a multimedia control devices. So the LEDs light guys light up under the touchpad, and you can control the volume and all this and that. And the idea behind it is to, when you're sitting dark and you're watching a movie and stuff like that, you don't want to fumble which button. You want to move the volumes and play back and pause and stuff like that, right? That product comes out an idea that in Synaptics we call LuxPad, which is combining light to touch. At that time, we didn't think about a dual mode product like that. We thought about, wouldn't that be nice if you touch the touchpad, a Ferrari logo goes up, and that is your lookbook that goes with your Ferrari sport cars or something like that, okay? So I was thinking about it for branding purposes. Some OEM manufacturer took that and said, hey, wait a minute, I can use it to do this, and this is kind of how we collaborate, and form a product called dual mode, touchpad. And then there's all kinds of supply and support. So what we are saying here is, Synaptics value proposition to our OEM, ODM partners is we kind of integrate those things in the background so that when we provide them with ideas, when we provide them with solutions, okay, we can help them differentiate their product as well as make sure that when they hit the ground running, they don't have production ramp-up problems. So a little bit of financial trend. The company went public in 2002. And since the company went public, we have grown on a compounded basis, grow the company 25% every year. And our net income line since 2002 has grown in a compounded annual growth rate basis about 34%. So I'm not going to tell you that we're not impacted by the economic downturn. We have, okay? But by and large, the company, has been growing. We hire, 15 to 20% of the people, every year. And the building that I showed you that we moved in a few years ago, we thought that that's going to be good enough, for the company. We have completely ran out of space, and we basically have moved, behind that to lease more spaces, right? So knock on wood here, the company had a good run, but there is not to suggest the business is easy. It's actually very challenging. But we have had quite a bit of a growth from relatively modest, small base. So the company today, last fiscal year ended in June, okay, of this year, and we had $473 million of revenue, and we are on a run rate basis to surpass $500 million this fiscal year. This is kind of, I'm going to go through that quickly here. This is a percentage of how we allocate our revenue. Our gross margin, for those of you that may not understand this, then you can come up and I can explain to you a little bit more. We run a gross margin about 40 to 45%. We invest 12 to 14% of our revenue in the R&D, and by the way, 90% of that is people, okay? The biggest capital, this is not like a semiconductor industry when you spend $1 billion on a fab. The most we spend on capital is design tools, notebook computers, for people. It's all human power in a company, right? So 60% of the expenditure of the company is really salaries, and people and benefits and stuff like that. We spend about 8 to 10% in SG&A, selling, general, administrative. Our operating margin is in the mid to high teens. That's our model. And our net income is in the low to mid-teens. So you look at the numbers in here. Some years are better than others, but by and large, we hit those metrics. And this is the last quarter, which ended in September. The trend kind of continues, but the business environment is very challenging, though. Okay, this is my last five on this company, in a sense. So this is the foil I took out of our last shareholders meeting. So one of the things we tell the shareholders here is how the company has performed. And using June 04, which is, when you look at any company proxies, they always compare 5 years. So we just kind of did the same thing. And if you use June 04 as a zeroing point, okay, the square here represents the returns of Synaptics, and this is return of NASDAQ and also the NASDAQ Computer Index. So I'm pretty proud that from a shareholder return perspective, the company has done quite well compared to some of our peers in NASDAQ. Okay, let me get back on some of the stuff that we just talked about. What problem we are solving, what value does a solution have to offer, how easy to use it. I'm going to zip through this thing pretty quickly here because I want to get to the last part here. And I guess I probably have 10 minutes, right, to go through the rest of this here. So first of all, make sure that when you look at what problem they are solving, make sure you guys look at it from the user's perspective. You guys got to be very clear who your target audiences are and not what your view of it is. And keep in mind, we engineers have a very bad, because we are, in general, techies to begin with anyway, okay? Sometimes you may have identified a problem, but your knowledge of the problem is a lot different, okay, than your end customers. And what's the ecosystem, okay? Ecosystem meaning when you look at iPod, right? The ecosystem is not just iPod. It is the music industry, who is willing to give you 99-cent downloads, okay? Is industry to produce iTunes, stuff like that, so that people use it easily. Okay, and I want to emphasize this point here, that technology is a tool to provide a solution. So I live in the Valley for over 35 years, full of smart people, just like this building is, right? Okay, so they can probably solve a differential equation in their head without talking through it, but that's not where most of the markets are, right? So make sure that technology is using to serve the people rather than the other way around. So what value does a solution offer? What's the user willing to pay? At one time, people were willing to pay $3,000 for notebook computers. Nowadays, they don't want to pay more than $400, $500. I mean, it's a totally different dynamics here in terms of, at that time, the users were a business community. Now, most of the users are consumers, okay? How sustainable is the value? Like a notebook computer, $3,000 versus $400. Actually, for a long time, when you look at PCs, The average selling price of the PC was about the same. And what you get out of it is more powerful processors, a bigger size disk drive, and the faster graphic processors. The ASP, average selling price, was actually holding up quite well. Not anymore. It's dropping like a rock, okay? So what you're trading for there is your value drops, but you appeal to a wider audiences, okay? And the audiences are no longer the business community and no longer the sophisticated, more of the sophisticated users, right? So now you have to offer different kinds of application for those people. How big is the market and the growth rate? And what is the return on investments? At the end of the day, we're in the business, right? So you have to offer value for your, whoever is the stakeholders. This is a very big part, in my mind, of why something failed. After you identify the solution and after you come up with a good product, how many of us have devices at home? I will tell you my first one, that I don't know how to use it unless I go back to a menu. Right? Think about VCR. Think about your phone. Think about your digital camera. I would challenge you guys, how many of you guys know how to conference a telephone call with your phone? I bet you 90% of your phone have that function. It's very difficult to use unless you start push this button and move here and put this on hold and all this and that, right? You have to be user-friendly, and it has got to be intuitive. The success of the iPhone and the iPod is because it's very easy to use, very simple. They have done a very good job in the usability of that. And I always tell people, guys, what KISS is, besides the obvious? Keep it simple, stupid. I want you guys to think about it. Keep it simple, okay? The more simple you use it, the more successful your devices, your solution is going to be. Okay. It does matter what it looks like and what it feels like, okay? Another thing about the iPod, after the iTunes, the next big chunk of the iPod revolution is the iPod mini. I don't know if you guys realize it or not. There was an iPod with multiple colors and stuff like that, okay? And people were sold out of them in Apple stores, okay? A lot of the reason why people are buying them has got nothing to do with iPod. Ladies are buying them because they want to buy different colors to match their accessories, their handbags. So when you go to New York City, there's a long line going out, and you see husbands and boyfriends buying iPod mini because that's what the girlfriend and wife need, to go with a handbag or go with the shoes because it's trendy, okay? Another thing that's a fashion statement. Another thing, a bragging rights. Okay, a bragging rights, a cell phone like the Motorola Razr. Remember when the Razr came out with really thin cell phones? Actually, it's not a very good cell phones, frankly, from a technology receiving, a perspective. But I had a thinner cell phone, and you don't. Okay, it's one of those things. Okay. Okay, what are the other functionalities besides the cell phone? Okay, are they complementary to the main solution? Does it matter? So I'll give you one example. I have a BlackBerry, and the reason why I have a BlackBerry because I don't want to. I got lots of emails, and I'm a low warrior, right? And I don't want to put on my computers and look at it all the time, stuff like that. I don't really know what other functionality is in my ring. If they get all away, I wouldn't miss it. Okay, but I know I'm paying for it. Okay, most of the cell phone that you have has got images on it. A cell phone is actually a terrible device to take pictures. But they gave it to you, they charge it to you, okay? Like I said, for most of us, if they don't give it, I could care less, frankly. Now, somebody might care, okay? So you have to think about those costs that you associate the devices, right? That get to ROI and, what do you do and all this and that. Okay, so I'm going to give you 2 innovation examples. It's got nothing to do with technology, but it has been very successful as a way to stimulate your thinking, okay? I already told you I'm a road warrior. I have many, many garment bags in my home that I'm not using anymore. And the reason why is rolling luggages. Now, what could be simpler than that? When they came out, I just said, darn it, how come I didn't think about it? Put a set of wheels on the luggage, and it just obsoleted all my garment bags at home. Today, it's very hard to go to the airport. You don't find people with luggage on wheels, right? And I think that's one of the best innovations they apply to our mass audiences. Has got very little technology, but there's a lot of innovation, right? Not just like there's no technology making wheels and luggages and stuff like that. Another example of that is gift bags. Can you imagine putting a shopping bag and wrapping paper and charging an arm and a leg for that? Right? Okay, those are some examples. Innovation requires very little technology to do. Okay, so enriching the interaction of human intellect is fine, but use technology to solve the problem and not for the technology's sake. So like I keep emphasizing to you, that it's nice that there is a lot of education, and kind of studying the finest things, but make sure that at the end of the day, we got to provide that to solve a problem from the user's perspective, okay, and not from the us perspective. Is that okay? Okay, I'm going to zip through the rest of it, in terms of the other side of it, and talk a little bit about the human interface interactions. So let me kind of quickly tell you, I don't think any of the stuff I'm telling you here, I need, a lot of description on. The world, the business is increasing global. Everyone will say yes. The world is flatter every day. I think you guys, a number of you guys probably have read the book Thomas Friedman, The World is Flat. It's actually quite an interesting book. But it's getting flatter every day. Competition's everywhere. So one of the things that I tell my employee is somebody somewhere is working hard to displace your job, your product, and your services constantly. And whether in doubt about that, look at all the data center that's coming out in India. We used to think, oh, it's only manufacturing jobs. Well, wrong, okay? A lot of those things move over there. We're losing a lot of engineering jobs now in the US, right? The race between the hare and the turtle, okay? So if you think about US is the hare, there's a lot of emerging countries that are working very hard, and I can tell you lots of examples, like in the semiconductor industry, how we used to have the lead here. You look at how many of the fabrication plants now are still in the US, not a whole lot, okay? As we move overseas now, into Korea, into Japan, into China now. So let me ask you a question, where's Nokia? That's one of the largest, company, cell company in the world, and most of you say it's in Finland. It's a Finnish company. That's true. But Nokia has got design center in San Diego. Do you guys realize that? Has got design center in China. So if you do business with Nokia, doing in Finland, in China, and in San Diego, 3 different worlds. Where's Samsung? Samsung is actually rapidly surpassing Sony as the world's largest electronic companies. You walk into Samsung, you try to sell them a cell phones, okay? The way how those guys organize is like there's 10 different companies within Samsung. And they're competing with each other inside Samsung. And you tell one group something, the other group don't want you to tell the other group about it. It's absolutely crazy, okay? But that's the reality of life, right? They don't want synergy. They want competition within the company so that they can, move ahead. Supply chain for HP computers. Who is doing that? Okay, what you find is motherboard built in Taiwan, obviously chips and stuff like that from electronics all over the place, right? And then the ODM factories, okay, probably are putting those stuff together in Shanghai, okay? And then they're distributing it, through some local distributors in the US for here, okay? And in the Dell's case, they're selling it through the web, and the distribution center is probably sitting in Timbuktu somewhere, right? They can do that. So those are some of the examples that I'm talking about here. Okay, so because of those challenges, right? People in the industry never stops. There's never a dull moment. You always got to figure out how to outfox the other guy, how to out-innovate the other guy. There's a lot of issues, executions of business plans and projects. And I introduce you a term here that each of you guys and me, right? Bring something to the party, and I call that individual brilliance, is what you bring to the party. And at the end of the day, when you say you do business with Samsung or Nokia and HP, you're not doing business with a company. You're doing business with somebody on the other side that has got a different logo, okay, on their shirt or something like that. You're working with people all the time, and never lose sight of that. So I said, at the end of the day, people are really the ultimate asset in any company, in any environment, regardless of what they say about it. Okay, they are the things that make things happen. So my discussion about human interface interaction is related to that. Okay, so on the individual brilliance is what do I bring to the party, what's my job function, how do I accomplish my goals? Those are kind of things that from my perspective, right? However, no man is an island, right? So, one of the very favorite terms that you hear people talk about is make sure we don't have silos in a company, okay? Make sure that, things are in the right spaces, gets taken care of, right? So collective wisdom is very important. How do I leverage, the sum of the pieces in a company, okay? How do I produce synergy at the same time as challenging, for the employees and for the, entity as a whole. So if you plot a chart, on the y-axis is performance one end, on the x-axis, is time. If the company still exists today, chances are they're improving. Otherwise, you will cease to exist. But what you also find is some company is going to improve at a slower rate, and some is going to go really fast. And I will offer for you the reason why they're in the lower part of it is because of, in general, they avoid risk as they go to a certain part. It's autocratic. NUT are nuts, okay, for those of you who do not know it. The founder of Creative Lab, the Sandblast card and all that, Sim Wong, he wrote a book, okay? He wrote a book in the turn of the millennium in his collection of essays. And I read it, and this term come out. Nuts means no U-turn syndrome. So, and what he said is, look, in Singapore, you cannot make a U-turn when you drive there unless specifically you are told to do so. If you make a turn, there's not a side you're going to do, you get a ticket. In the US, you can take a turn anywhere unless the Pacific tells you you're not allowed to make a U-turn. So his observation was, in the US, people take risk. People are more free to do things. And in Singapore, it's very conformal. There are rules for everything. So I just kind of thought it was interesting. In the case, I just call those individual brilliance. They are people working hard, making things happen. On the other hand, when you look at the right, people in there take risks. They do what is right. People empower, okay? And this is what I find where the collective wisdom comes in. And a lot of the company, sorry about the color here, if you find a way to kind of harness collective wisdom, what you're going to see is you're getting the power, the genius of the end, right? This is a term that Jim Collins, when he wrote his book, From Good to Great, okay? Okay, another part about the collective wisdom here. Am I okay with time here, you guys? Okay, I'll just keep going here. If you guys have arrangement, leave, okay? Another thing about collective wisdom is there's the notion of networking. I'm actually very fortunate to live in the Valley for 35 years after I graduated from Davis. The network is the Valley is a very special place. And you guys are actually very close, to the Second Valley here, okay? So if you want to find something, on somebody, chances are, if you've been there a while like I am, you wouldn't go through 2 layers of friends and you're fired, okay? And it's just fabulous. Because that way you can actually leverage on the diversity, on the knowledge base of it. So I would ask you guys, okay, especially students in here, to pay attention to how do you network. Don't just wait for the popular social networking sites like LinkedIn and all those things, Facebook. Those are good tools, okay? I'm talking beyond that when I talk about networking. Use those tools to help you, but don't rely on it only. I'll talk some of it is functional. I want to know some functional knowledge. Some of them is so-so, okay? We all have a life, right, other than working. Some of it is career. More than 50% of the jobs are not listed publicly. More than 50%, okay? So things happen in Synaptics. I don't have time to post it, or I don't have time to update it. Sometimes I don't even know there's a need until somebody talks to me about it, okay? So if you want to find a career, networking, is very important, especially in your domain. And then there's regional international. So if you believe that, it is a flat society and it's global, you better have networks, okay, that has got things in China, in India, in Europe, whatever, you're interested in. So I ask you to focus, think about that. Okay, so I'm going to share with you a few things in Synaptics, how we deal with that. Again, I'm not suggesting that we are good and, we got everything sorted out. I'm just want to let you know this is what we do here. So please take that with that context here, okay? I'm not suggesting this is the way how it should be. We have 3 core values. We go to our website, you will see them. Okay, creativity initiative. And the reason why we did that is innovation is our blood. And we try to say, how do we define innovation? And we decided creativity and initiative, if you do both of those things, you will have innovations. Second thing about it, exemplary customer partnerships. I said a little bit about you do business with people all the time. When we talk about that, we emphasize a lot about internal customers. It's not just external customers. So find out who your internal customers are. Charity starts at home. If you don't serve your internal customers, the external customer have no chance in terms of getting served. The last thing is to have a respectful and stimulating work environment because, you know, listen, I mean, if you're good, the employees are good, they probably have thousands of job opportunity outside the companies. There are probably people calling them all the time, headhunters calling all the time. So if they're not stimulated, if they're not respected, there's no amount of money, literally, you can keep them because your competitor is going to give them a bigger check and they will bolt, right? So we think those three things are core values and we try to practice that. And one of the ways we practice that is to put down a list of what we call behavioral norms. Those are things that we would like employees in a company to practice. The first thing is confidence and trust. We believe we can win together. Second thing is planning. And the reason why I say planning is up there is because we are so busy. Sometimes we run from one thing to the next thing to the next thing, right? We don't put in systemic solutions. We band-aid things. Accountability and commitments, hey, look, if I tell you something, hang on it. Effective communication, we engage and commit openly, directly, and timely. By the way, it is, if you ask me one single biggest thing, when you go out, you know, work for the environment, industry, is communications. Lots of time when we communicate, we transmit and we don't receive, okay? And when we communicate, people don't hear us. You turn up the volume in transmission, except it's like a walkie-talkie. You're talking a different channel. Doesn't matter how long you talk. Nobody's going to understand what you say, okay? Systemic solution kind of go with planning. Positive reinforcement. Another thing you find in the Valley, and also with us, is we are a bunch of people very hard on ourselves. You can tell us 99 things that are good. You tell me one thing that are bad, and that's where all the energy focuses into the bad things, okay? We used to have a say in our company, how can we feel this bad when we are this good? Because everybody is focusing on bad things. So we remind ourselves, you know, to recognize each other. And the last thing here is customer partnership. I kind of talked to you a little bit about that internal customer concept here. So now I'm going to go through a few for you to kind of share with you leadership. Okay, so when you go out, you know, how do you get collective wisdom? First of all, leadership is an inside-out process. What that means is got to start with you. Does not start at the top and does not end at the top. Anybody can be a leader. One of the most respected employee in the company inside Synaptics hardly has anybody reporting to him. Okay, he's a gentleman by the name of Dave Gillespie. Okay, very nice guy. Okay, you know, very casual in his demeanor. Unquestionably, he is one of the leaders, if not, you know, one of the top leaders, you know, inside the company. Know yourself, because if you start inside-out process, you got to know who you are, what do you like, how do you react under pressure, right? You know, and I couldn't emphasize this more. Be genuine. Smart people see that you are phony faster than you realize. And if they are not smart and you can fool them, you don't want them anyway. Is that fair? Right? Okay. Walk the talk. Okay. And people just say, you know, you practice, right? Do as I told you and not do as I do. You would have a tough time in terms of getting people. So there's a recipe that there's three things that I tell people that I practice and I try to get people to practice. First is confidence. Second is conviction. Third is humility. So let's talk about confidence here. Confidence is not arrogance. People sometimes, you know, if you're overconfident, you're actually arrogant. Confidence is the ability to transmit the optimism, assurance, and respect. So the best way to look at it is when you look at some of the coaches, right, in a football game or a basketball game, right? You know, they're confident they beat people, but they always respect their opponents. You try not to psych up the other team, right? By telling them they're no good and all this and that, right? You know, who wants to follow a leader that don't exhibit any confidence, demeanor? Nobody, I can tell you, right? You know, conviction is a belief, okay, to a cause, right? It's a shared vision of greatness, and I kind of share with you some of the shared value, okay? When the going gets tough, the tough gets going, What is that? It really is the emotional fortitude of the people. It's not, I can assure you, is not 99% of the time is not money, even though that might band-aid you, sometime, right? Is when things are getting tough, right? When people are working long hours, okay, and people don't see, the end, the light of the tunnel. It's really conviction that certain things of serve value that bring them over the top. Okay, humility by far is probably the toughest things for most leaders. So yet one of the most important in the recipe. Because as we grow up, one of the things that we grow up is when we're totally uninhibited to fail, then we begin to fear failures. We don't want to look bad in front of people that matters. We begin to do things that works. And the more successful you are, the more you say, well, I've done it before, and you begin to believe that's the only way that will work. And the more you do that, okay, the more you feel that I don't want to admit my mistakes. I don't want to ask people's, second opinions or opinions. And the minute you do that, what happened there is you become victims of your success and you become arrogant. And I find it a lot, okay, of a lot of the successful leaders that sometimes they can have problems, including myself, run into. So if you want to optimize collective wisdom, you got to be able to have humility in you so that individuals, okay, have a chance to express their opinions, express their, functional excellence. And you also provides continuous learning, okay? And once you have continuous learning organization, that becomes like the tail of the hare and the turtle. Even though you might be slow, but if you keep on learning, eventually you overcome, somebody that might be better. Okay, those three things together, I mean, my best analogy to you is like a Chinese herb tea. For those of you that don't know about Chinese medicine, the Chinese approach to the herb tea is you seldom find it made of one ingredient. It's always a collection of herbs ingredients that have counterbalancing properties. Because the belief there is the key ingredient to work so well, it produces adverse side effects. Okay, so you always have counterbalancing. So to me, in order for those three things to work, you have to have them linked together. So you have to have confidence, but if you have overconfidence, it turns a blind eye on reality. Conviction is nice, but if what you believe in, your goals and ideals are changed because competitive forces, or just because you are wrong, it's very dangerous, right? Humility by itself without confidence is actually bad because it leads to indecisiveness and ineffectiveness. So as you guys think about some of that stuff, you move in the industry in terms of how you practice some of that. So remember the point I talked about, the long-term sustainable improvements? So you have to have good people. You don't have good people, you're in trouble. So don't underestimate the individual brilliance part, but you also need collective wisdom. Most of the company's problem is not in a functional sense. It's always between one function to the next function. Because none of the function really is independent. They're all linked together. And it's all to do with organizational effectiveness. Sometimes you may want to sub-optimize a function to optimize the organization. And that is tough to do because everybody is overwhelmed with stuff. And how do you do that, right? And leadership is those three things, in my simple model, practice them. And always remember, people are the ultimate asset, okay? You always do business with people. And so that's the end of my discussion here. So welcome any dialogues or questions or comments you may have. Sorry that I ran over, okay? Questions? Yes.
Compared to Synaptics, what technology do you feel most that should wipe out Synaptics?
Well, first of all, the simplest part to answer your question is I don't know, because like I said, somebody somewhere is working on something, right, to displace me. On stuff that I can see today, okay, Synaptics has lots of competitors. So we have large semiconductor companies, that produce chips and stuff like that. They say, oh, I know how to do capacitive technologies, okay. We have a system, like a sensor providers, okay. They say, well, I can buy a chip, and put that in. We have LCD companies, okay? They said, well, if you're going to do touch, phone touch screen anyway, why don't I get a chip integrated with my LCD and you get, a lot, faster way to get the market and so on and so forth. So when I look at the stuff that is on there, they all have different kinds of technology they bring to the party, right? So if you look at it from a user perspective, okay, I would say that I don't see any of these locations out there, that can, make Synaptic kind of go away. But I see that we have a very fragmented competitive forces out there, and we have to deal with it, very effectively by a number of things. Like one of the things is we believe our solution is customized, right? I told you, our solution cannot be, found in a catalog anywhere. So big companies, okay, they like to have a commodity solution because that way they can bundle things together and wipe you out. So the way how we deal with that is we move localized design centers close to the customers so they can do concurrent engineering together because time to market is critical in those products and stuff like that. And we always innovate. So we talk about what is the next thing. So in gestures, for example, which is big these days, then we have to figure out what's the next big thing to do gestures, right? So that's how we deal with it. We don't see any, technology out there that will completely dislocate, the company, but we see lots of competition, bringing out different business model, different way of doing things.
It seems that your technology would be subject to some constraints from miniaturization, right? Because of finite sizes of our fingers.
Because of what?
Finite sizes.
Finite sizes of the end devices?
Of human fingers and touches.
Okay.
So, therefore it would be sort of like you have a constraint on towards how small you can make your human interface, right?
Well, first of all, remember I said when you do something, you can understand your market, right? So just because we do touch, we don't claim to own everything that's touchable. Just keep that in mind, right? Okay. So by that we have defined a certain target market that we want, right? So let me just pick one, right? Cell phone. If one day cell phone gets implanted in our ear, that's not our market. But that we think it'll be a long time, coming, right? Cell phones today has got candy bar phones, has got flip phones, got phone with a keyboard on it. There's no standard form factor for cell phones because usability of a cell phone. Sometimes said, I want to have a keyboard. Somebody said, no, I want a single finger operation. Somebody said, I want a stylus because I want the icon to be small and I can use a pen to poke at it. Somebody said, I don't want a two-hand operation. Okay, I want a single hand. I don't want to worry about if I lose my stylus, and what to do with it. So you just have to define your market in such a way that, you grow with the market, right? Then, of course, if the growth rate of a miniaturization becomes a dislocation forces for the company, then we have to deal with it. So far, I don't see that as a problem. As a matter of fact, we have more addressable market than we know what to deal with. The company is not in toys, is not in point-of-sale systems, is not in automotives, is not in, I can go on and on the list, industrial controls and designs and all this and that, right? Because we are a small company. So for our challenge is not that I worry about the runway or the addressable market, is I worry about how to do it effectively. And other companies may be different.
Okay, I think we'll call it to a close, and as a small token of our appreciation, I'd like to present you with our book, UC Davis Aggie Pride, and thank you again for coming out.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys. I'll be around here. Thank you, guys.
One follow-up comment. There is a reception in Kemper Hall lobby. You're all invited to join us, and you can ask Francis some questions, follow-up questions. Thank you.
Thank you.